Hi everyone. In this video, I'll review 3 tips for writing your literary analysis essay. And while we review these tips, I'll use the sample student essay as a guide. Tip number 1, know your genre. Let's return to a key critical reading technique. Just as readers ask before reading, what kind of genre am I reading? It's important for writers to ask, what kind of genre am I writing before you start writing? For this writing assignment, you're asked to write an essay. Since there are many different types of essays, the essay instructions point out that you are writing a literary analysis essay. The literary analysis essay is a type of essay that belongs in the category of persuasive argumentative. And the role of a persuasive argumentative essay is to argue a point or make a claim, take a side, and persuade your readers to accept your claim as valid using evidence. Since this is a literary analysis essay, you will be arguing a point or making a claim, taking a side about literature. More specifically, the writing prompt asks you to argue a point about one poet's use of 2 poetic devices. So, for the literary analysis essay, your job as the writer is to make a claim about the poet's use of 2 poetic devices and persuade your readers to accept your claim as valid. Your claim is the thesis, which takes us to tip number 2. Tip number 2, make your claim. Because the essay asks you to be specific in your focus, choosing one poem and writing about the poet's use of 2 poetic devices, the claim or thesis of your essay should be specific and debatable, since your essay is an argumentative piece. To develop a specific debatable thesis, answer these 2 questions. 1, what 2 poetic devices will you analyze in your essay? And 2, what deeper meaning or theme does the poet express with these 2 poetic devices? Your answers to these 2 questions will make up your thesis, and the thesis should appear at the end of the introduction. In fact, it should appear as a thesis statement or the last sentence of your introduction. Let's review the sample student essay in the Week 6 folder to see how the writer presents her thesis in the introduction. I'll read the introduction to us. The next day, John saw Jesus coming toward him and said, "Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world." English Standard Version, the book of John, chapter 1, verse 29. Just as the Bible refers to Jesus as a lamb, so does William Blake's poem, The Lamb. In The Lamb, Blake uses many poetic devices, but symbolism is the poetic device that shows the importance of Jesus Christ and what he has done for humanity. Using the poetic device of symbolism makes Blake's poem clearer and understandable. Blake titled this poem The Lamb. Uncoincidentally, the lamb is a symbol. There are many things a lamb could symbolize. For instance, lambs can symbolize children, innocence, naivete, timidity, and sacrifice. For the same reason, Blake uses the symbol of a lamb in reference to religion to express hope. So as we just mentioned, the thesis should appear as the last sentence in this introduction. So this means that the thesis would be in Carrie's essay. For the same reason, Blake uses the symbol of a lamb in reference to religion to express hope. Now, Carrie does answer those 2 questions. 1, what poetic device will she analyze in her essay? She says Blake uses the symbol, so we know she's going to analyze symbolism. And also, Carrie answers the question, well, what deeper meaning or theme does Blake express through the use of symbolism? And she says that Blake uses the symbol of a lamb in reference to religion to express hope. So this is the claim or the argument that she's making about Blake's use of symbolism. Notice that Carrie does not present textual evidence or a quotation from the poem and an analysis of the quotation in this introduction. This takes us to tip number 3. So tip 3 is to present your evidence. In your introductory paragraphs, some of you introduce textual evidence in the form of a quotation from the poem and analysis of the evidence. While evidence is needed to persuade your readers to accept your thesis as valid, the introduction's purpose is to simply introduce the essay's overall topic and thesis. So it's not necessary to bring in textual evidence from the poem and analysis in the introduction. So where should the evidence go? The answer to this question is simple: the body paragraphs. Think back to the meal format video. The video uses an acronym to describe what should go in a body paragraph. M is the main idea, or a topic sentence that summarizes the body paragraph's main idea. E stands for evidence, in the form of direct quotations from the poem. A stands for analysis, so your readers will understand why you are quoting the poem. And L stands for last thoughts, a concluding sentence to wrap up the paragraph. The job of the body paragraph is to support the thesis. This is the whole function of the body paragraph and nothing else. So be sure to include the textual evidence and analysis in the body, not the introduction. Additionally, be sure to include textual evidence that supports the thesis. A summary of the poem is not necessary, since your readers are familiar with the literature you are analyzing. When presenting the textual evidence, use the quote sandwich. Let's review this sample essay again to see how the writer presents textual evidence. So we can move down to the next body paragraph. And Carrie writes, "Lambs are like children that are naive to the world. They symbolize innocence, and therefore they can be unaware as to what is going on around them." Blake uses the symbol of a lamb's innocence to indicate the innocence of children. In the beginning of the poem, the speaker has a one-way conversation with the lamb. Furthermore, the speaker asks the lamb with a familiar and kind tone, "Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Gave thee life and bid thee feed by the stream and over the mead. Gave thee clothing of delight, soft as clothing woolly bright. Gave thee such a tender voice, making all the valleys rejoice." Blake, lines 1 through 8. This description that the speaker mentions are all questions and thoughts people may ask themselves as children. Their innocence and naivete of the world leads to questions of curiosity about God as the creator. Children want to know how they were brought into the world, who made them and who gave them such a tender voice. They want to know how anything is possible. In addition to Blake's poem, in lines 3 to 8, the speaker points out wondrous things God has given to the lamb: life, food throughout the lands, the best of the best clothing of fine material, and a voice that brings joy and delight. Therefore, these lines show all of the blessings God has given to people as his children, including his own son, Jesus Christ, and these blessings were given out of love. So following the meal format, Carrie begins with the sentence, "Lambs are like children that are naive to the world. They symbolize innocence, and therefore they can be unaware as to what is going on around them." So, and then she continues, Blake uses the symbol of a lamb's innocence to indicate the innocence of children. So Carrie is using these three sentences to summarize the main idea of her body paragraph. And then she introduces the evidence that she presents in this block quote format because she's quoting 8 lines. So she has to use this block quote format. And if she's quoting 8 lines, she has to analyze most of these lines. And here we have the quote sandwich. She gives us a signal phrase by setting up the quotation. She says, "Furthermore, the speaker asks the lamb with a familiar and kind tone." And then, so that's the signal phrase. She's setting up the quotation. Then she gives us the quotation in the block quote format. And then the rest of the paragraph is the analysis. The quote sandwich starts with the top layer of bread, which is the signal phrase. Then we have the meat, which is the quotation itself. And then we have the bottom layer of the bread, which is the analysis of the quotation. The analysis is the most important part of the quote sandwich, and it's the most important part of the body paragraph because the analysis tells us, well, why are you quoting that piece of textual evidence? What's the relevance of it? And this whole body paragraph, again, the function of the body paragraph is to support the thesis. Now, I'll leave it up to you to decide whether or not you think that Kerry's body paragraph actually does support the thesis. But this is how the meal body paragraph works, and we have the quote sandwich as well. Well, these are the 3 quick tips for writing an effective essay. Tip 1, know your genre. Tip 2, make your claim. Tip 3, present your evidence. When you think you're finished, be sure to use the MLA checklist at the end of the essay's instructions to make sure you're following the MLA format. That's it, everyone. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your essays. Bye now.